right, welcome back to New Comic Book Day Night Live, the one and only show that's on at nights and also live about comics. Here we are once again this month. We are live with my co-host Rick Lopez and my co-host Manny Gomez. What's up, guys?
What's up, everybody?
With our not much. We're here with our super special guest, Don Simpson, whose brand new book, X Amount of Comics, is taking the shelves by storm. You determine which shelves, and they will storm them. I've got mine somewhere here.
We will not give in to his shellfish demands.
Oh my gosh. That's Joe Eli Corrales #3 with the jokes, ladies and gentlemen. He'll be here all night.
What I can't do with drawing, I'll make up with bad comedy.
Amazing. The best kind.
It was a very good client. That's the only reason I put up with him. How's it going down, Joe? Is it raining today?
Say that again?
Is it raining down in Texas today?
It's Texas. If 1 minute it could be disaster, the next minute it could be dry. Right now it isn't raining, but we just went through a tropical storm Harold, and they canceled school and everything, so that's good. I'm a teacher, and as a kid I always wanted school to be canceled, but damn, as a teacher, that's like 5 times more work.
This is a summer session?
Pardon?
It's a summer session, right?
Oh, no. Our school is on a, quote, modified year-round schedule, so we start in late July and end
like
really
a film
early.
school or something. Are there any other educators? Are there any other educators on the call here tonight? What do you guys do? What are your day jobs? Anyway,
one of my day job is comics for me. I just I had worked at Apple for 10 years before I started this, and then I just quit to start doing comics full time this year.
Manny?
I'm a restaurant general manager.
Yeah. And let's see, Rick.
You got to ask to unmute Rick there.
I still serve on the weekends in the restaurant as well. But other than that, yeah, just working on my books, working on other stuff for people.
Yeah, I do another podcast too. So I try to keep one foot in the comics world every day,
Me too.
Well, we'll get to all that. We usually like to start the show off with a little bit of plugging real quick to make sure that everyone knows where we're at, what we're doing, what's going on. So let's start with Rick Lopez over here, because I know he's got a brand new book. So
he sure does.
Tell us about it and where we can all find it.
Hey everyone, Rick Lopez. You can find me on Instagram and pretty much everywhere else at Doomdazed. First couple things I'm always pushing. First of all, I did a cover for Jerome Cabanatan's Tree vs. Fox book. It's an all ages black and white kung fu comic. He's located in Canada and he teaches Taekwondo. So those are a lot of fun. And then me and Manny worked together on a 6-page backup for Adam Lemna's Relic Hunter, which is published by Cosmic Line. So I have 6 pages in that one. Just constantly pushing those. Of course, Ghost Agents, written by Rocco Jerome, a worldwide endeavor. We got the cover by Barry Tan, just filled with a ton of different artists all over the world, including legendary Ken Landgraf. I have 6 pages coming in one of the next chapters, so always have Ghost Agents at my table, so always pushing that one. But The Baby is my series, The Power. It's a 4-issue miniseries. It's about a boy creating a comic, only to discover a realm beyond space and time within his own mind. So this third one gets a lot further into the weeds, a lot more like psychedelic imagery, just playing with the medium as a whole, that sort of thing. I sell those on my big cartel, so you can find those. I still have a few left, and then as well, we have a comic book syndicate. There's over a dozen of us on Next Panel Press, and we each have our own strips. We go back and forth bi-weekly and put out new strips from each of us every other weekend. So on Next Panel Press, you can find Cosmic Cat and a dozen other different titles. And you can go through our story highlights if you want to catch up with any of them. Not this weekend, but the weekend after that, me and Eli are going to be at Long Beach Comic Con. So that'll be the next thing we're at.
I kept walking by.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure who I cut off. Yeah, Barry Tan. He did the cover as well.
That's the spread that sells 1 million comics right there.
I kept walking by Eli's table down in Charlotte, and I kept seeing this, and it's like, oh well.
You gotta do it.
Nice work. Psychedelic.
All right, let's head over to Manny and see what you're up to, man.
Well, as Rick mentioned, I have a story in the first issue of Relic Hunter that he illustrated, and that's available now from Cosmic Lion Productions. Yeah, Adam Lemna's fantastic Relic Hunter. If you like outlaw barbarian crap, it's gonna be your ticket, man. It's fantastic. And starting with issue 2, I'm helping to co-write the main story, so that's been a lot of fun. And some of those pages from issue 2 have already been serialized in Next Panel Press, like Rick also mentioned, and we should be getting some more pages in that story coming soon. I also do another podcast. I'm on the Comic Lounge with Ryan. We do videos every week, usually at least one new book that we cover that we like that came out, and then we also like to focus on other books that maybe people don't really talk about too much. Like we've got a video coming up soon about a Lobo Batman book from 2000 that Simon Beasley drew, which I didn't even know existed until I found it in a dollar bin. So we do stuff like that. And then you can also find me writing articles at monkeysfightingrobots.com. I've interviewed plenty of you from the group. And I've got an interview with Tom Scioli about his Stan Lee book coming up soon. That should be published sometime in the next week or so. But yeah, that's what I got going on. So, try to stay busy. And like I said, keep one foot in the comics world every day, man.
Nice. Sweet. Thanks, Manny. And of course, I'm Eli from Cosmic Lion Productions, the very production company you've heard all these great books about. We are signing some new artists we met down at Heroes Con. That's going to be amazing. I've got a new book that I'm working on with some dudes. This is the very first underground comic I ever bought when I was a child back in Maryland. It's like some paper stapled, and I finally found the guy who did it, and he's working on a new book. And 35, 40 years later, I'm publishing his book, and I'm really excited that I was able to make this full circle thing happen. So
that's awesome
about that. We're working on it, and
that is awesome.
Yeah, so I'm psyched. And that's going to be the next book. And I'm also working with, this is also a exclusive that we're probably going to announce tomorrow. I'm working with Dave Howlett of the Makers fame. He was also at Heroes Con. He has a book. It's kind of like if the Image founders went on a Galaxy Quest style adventure where they're put into a superhero type of situation. It's super cool, amazing book, and I'm going to be doing some U.S. distribution on that book, so that's going to be really cool. All right, so without further adu, let's get into chatting with Don Simpson. That one too, Kevin Anthony Catalan's book. That book is completely sold out now. We do have.
Is it? Wow, that's awesome.
We have his trade, but not the zine any longer. Just issue 1. We have very few issues of that left. And issue 2 is coming.
By happenstance, I happen to pick those up.
Exactly. And just by happenstance, I happen to find this.
So this is irrepressible salesman.
Exactly. It's part of the blood that flows.
I'm not. I'm terrible. I'm like this. Unfortunately, this wasn't out.
You had a few copies, or
pretty
or
well
you had
with this. This is my show only book. I only have 30 of these left now. I have to go back to press. I am going to offer these on sale.
Oh, nice.
Cool. Weren't some of
This
those?
is unquestionably. This is unquestionably the big thing. This is the big event. this summer. And when you get it, you've already probably seen the artwork on my Facebook page, but there's a long text piece in the back. Let me switch cameras just a second here.
Right, I spotlighted you for everyone here.
So
as we take a tour of.
There's a long text piece, and basically, I think I did a 72-page. Excuse me. Did a 72-page comic book just so I could write this long rambling essay. There's pictures of me with the 63 guys, Rick Veach, Steve Bissett. So I'll talk about how I got involved in the original 1963. Are all you guys associated with Giant Size 63? Is that the deal?
Yeah, I wrote a story for that one. If it ever comes out.
We're learning to focus on the camera. Anyway, stuff like that. But other stuff that I've done, this is a real surprise. Pink Lemonade by Nick Cagnetti, cult favorite. This kid's coming on strong, and I did a backup feature in his second issue, which he included in his collection. Let me see if I can find it now. Here it is. So there's some of my art and lettering, and he's a really brilliant colorist. He's fantastic, and I got to meet him down at Charlotte.
Yeah, he's great.
Real upbeat guy, real sweet, innocent kid. Hasn't succumbed to the fan adulation yet. Become a miserable person.
An incredibly chill guy.
Anyway, so that's that. And I'm doing 3 covers for Joe Ely. Excuse me again. And he's got a story arc called The Druid's Secret, part 1, 2, and 3. I owe him the second cover to finish the coloring. And Joe is quite the Renaissance man. He's too modest to say anything, but he's an educator. He flies airplanes. He's in the Air Force Reserve. He plays violin, mariachi, and he's teaching himself to draw and cartoon. And pretty amazing. His dad, I believe, had aspirations to be a cartoonist. So, and it's a really really well thought out storyline. I can visualize this as a TV show. Once the writer's strike is over, Joe Ely is going to sell this to Hollywood. Anyway, that's what I'm up to. And enough about me. What do you want to talk about?
No. We've got another hour and a half to fill about you. But we can start doing some questions, Don. Let's begin the grilling. We could start with Manny if you'd like to start us off with the grillage. Sure,
Don. If you don't mind, I wanna take it back a bit, and I'm a huge fan of Wasteland. I've been able to find every issue pretty much over the last couple of years by going to cons and pulling them from dollar books, because I don't think it's ever been reprinted. You'd probably know better than I do, but I just found that to be such a unique comic book. You know, the involving of like Del Close, the comedian, and so many creators. Like, can you talk a little bit about how you came out to the project and what it was like to work closely with Del Close, I guess, and anything to do with the book, man? Because when I found that book, I was really.
I gotta find my cough drops. Hold on just a second. I just lost.
Sure. Take your time.
There we go. It's funny because and one of the little things in the back of X amount. I have a photo of me and Del.
Wow. Yeah.
I got to meet him only in the early 90s. And when we were doing Wasteland, this was the era of fax machines. I had met John Ostrander several times at shows, and I knew Bill Lopez, and we went to John Ostrander's house in Chicago. But I never met Del, and this was, you know, back then he was not very well known. I knew Del from I had heard a record called How to Speak Hip, which was a comedy record from the like 1959, 1961, about the time I was born. And so I'd heard that on the radio one time. But all the other stuff about him being a theater legend in Chicago, all that stuff was kind of unknown, just because this was before the internet. Excuse me. If you saw the documentary,
I did. Yeah.
There's very little of his work that survives on film. I mean, it's just little home videos and bits of fragments of stuff. He did some cameos in some movies and stuff. So it's not this great body of work, unfortunately, but he apparently had a tremendous influence on a number of comedians. But at the time I was drawing it, I was just doing it for money.
Oh.
I was like, I was doing
Border Worlds, yeah,
which was tanking in the market. And Mike Gold at DC Comics was hiring. He hired Bill Lopez for Wasteland. He hired me. It's kind of our foot in the door, but it wasn't like something I asked for or tried out for or really appreciated at the time. I just didn't appreciate the opportunity of working with this legend, you know. And so it was, I would get these scripts faxed to me, and I tried to do my best, but it never even occurred to me to try to call up Chicago and talk to these guys and ask them what they were trying to tell in these stories. So it was a very abstract experience, and I've said to John Ostrander many times since, I just didn't appreciate it. I was mostly bitter about not being able to do Border Worlds. So, and you know, if you appreciate things much later and you realize the opportunity that they represented, but I could have done a better job on those scripts.
I mean, I love them.
They're on Comixology. I think they've been digitized.
Yeah, I think they have been as singles, because I've seen them on there. But like I said, I think I have the entire run, and I don't know if DC will ever. Was there ever talk of publishing a collection or anything like that you're aware of? Or
I don't know if they even have my address now, because I should be getting some royalties for some of that stuff, but I don't have any contacts, and of course after this, meaning X amount of comics, I contend that Jim Lee is the stinker of the century. Hardly won't hear from DC too eagerly anytime soon. I don't think it's real high on their agenda to reprint Wasteland.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, but I think it's a book that really should get a lot of attention, because it's different.
When it came out, did you buy it?
No, I was reading comics, but I was probably too young to appreciate something like that. You know, I was still reading, you know, a lot of superhero stuff, but I was definitely reading comics. But I didn't find out about this until I pulled it out of a long box in a dollar bin, and I'm like, wow, these are some great names in here. And then I found another issue, and then it became a thing. Like, I'm gonna collect every issue of this because I know it's not gonna get.
I learned a lot from the experience, and I got better. I think the first 3 or 4 issues I was pretty terrible. I just didn't know what I was doing. I had never illustrated. Excuse me, never illustrated anybody else's story. I'd only illustrated my own ideas, and you know, you're going to be more enthusiastic about something you thought of yourself. And these guys were asking me to draw, you know, giant rats in the sewers and stuff like that, and giraffes.
I was just looking at that story.
And I was like, I don't know what this is about. And today, of course, I would, if I got a script like that, I would call these guys up and have a conference, and maybe in a Zoom meeting like this, and I'd ask them, what the hell are you trying to get across here? And, you know, and then there would be a lot more reference available. You know, I was just kind of, this was very, very primitive times, the mid to late 80s. So, you know, if I wanted to draw a sewer, I would have to climb down into a sewer and get actual first-hand experience or something. Now you can find all kinds of reference and all kinds of things. But,
That's true.
I was just making things up, and like I said, you didn't even know really who Del Close was. Now you have clips, and now you have photos, and now you have all kinds of reference that would have come in real handy. But anyway, live and learn.
One more question I wanted to ask about Wasteland is that I never understood what was the issue with issue 6, how there's 2 of them. Do you know what happened there? Like, one is labeled number 6, the other one the real number 6.
Hold them up. So they, my cover is on the left,
right?
And they somehow printed that cover on the wrong issue.
Okay.
And instead of recalling all the books, they just put out a second version with the blank cover, and that was
interesting.
Essentially one of the first blank covers. There was a
yeah, you're right.
There was an issue of Panic from the early 60s or the late 50s that was a blank cover. But that Wasteland is probably the second blank cover ever published. Now that I see them all the time.
Well, that's all I got.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so no problem. Manny. For now. Yeah.
I'll go from here.
Like I said, Wasteland has kind of risen in stock. There's a lot of things that I was involved in back in the 80s that were just kind of freelance assignments. So people didn't necessarily love them at the time. But,
ahead of its time.
Agreed. For me, the documentary really brought it into light and made me super interested in.
Well, they used all my illustrations and didn't give me a credit. But I did get in touch with the director, and she sent me a Blu-ray. So she was very kind about it. All they had to do was get permission from DC. They didn't really have to get our permission to do it.
Yeah,
so
I guess
it
that's
wasn't
true.
a personal thing, but they were trying to get millions of permissions for video clips and different actors and interviews and stuff like that. So they just overlooked us artists, even though we were on screen for about like 30% of the time.
Yeah.
Me and Bill Lopes and David Lloyd. A lot of people that early.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great list of people in that book, man.
Anyway, about that.
Absolutely. All right, I'll like to just talk a little bit about Megaton Man and the genesis of this. You're like kind of like original character, the kind of beginning of your career. So Megaton Man, everyone seems to talk about it as a send up, as a spoof or whatever of comic books, of the superhero genre. Did you feel exactly like this is what I'm doing when you started making this your like underground book? Did you start it as just a character and then be like, oh my god, with this power I can shine a light on the industry? Or was that always your first inspiration with Megaton?
Well, I've told this story a few times. My roommate was a fellow named Mike Kazala.
Okay.
He was a bigger name in animation. He worked on the original. He worked on The Simpsons when it was the 5-minute episodes on the Tracy Ullman show, and he worked on Ren and Stimpy, and he did a number of comic books. He did Captain Jack for Fantagraphics. Anyway, Mike, I went to high school with Mike, and he was obviously into the funny animal tradition and humor and animation. I was seriously into Steranko and dramatic superheroes and Bern Hogarth dynamic anatomy and all this stuff. So we had this kind of bet going on that, like, you know, which one is easier to do, superheroes or humor. And so I filled my sketchbook. I tried to do funny stuff, and it was coming out terrible. It was like all sappy, teenage, Archie kind of goofy stuff. And Mike tried superheroes for about a day and a half, and then he gave up. But I kept having it. I was like trying to do something funny, and the closest I came was that I did this drawing of a beach bum, kind of this Muscle Beach bum, draped with bikini-clad women, and I showed it to people, and they laughed. It was like, you know, it was the prototype of Megaton Man. And then I kept drawing it, and I gave him a costume. And I gave him like gauntlet gloves, tried different capes and stuff. And I had a big M on his chest, but I wasn't sure what he was going to be called. He was going to be Mighty Man or something. And finally, we came up with the name Megaton Man, which suggested nuclear warheads and the Cold War and all that stuff. So it all just fell into place at that point. But up until that point, I was trying to do serious, dramatic superheroes and maybe like more like heavy metal science fiction of that time period, early 80s. Mobius and Bilal and the French cartoonists in particular. But it was my entry into. I thought, well, I could ride this into, you know, maybe I'll do an issue of this and you know, get a job lettering or, you know, production or something. I'll break into comics somehow. And I sent it to 15 different publishers at the time, all of which are now defunct. Fantagraphics turned it down twice, even though now they're going to do a reprint of the whole collection. But Gary Groth had 2 looks at it, 83 and 84, and he turned it down. But Kitchen Sink wanted to do it, so it was my foot into the business, and I just kept writing it. I didn't have a real overarching plan. The interesting thing, and I'll just show you, this is a page I'm doing today, or I just did this the other day. I don't know if you can see this. So this is, I even mimicked, I relettered this, but this was the kind of the original tagline in the first issue. This is the new version. This is a pencil page. The main difference now is that I have a much more worked out world for these characters, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about how the world works, their backstories, all that stuff, and the other difference. Let's see if I can show you some. Now this was literally a page I was penciling today before my scanner broke. But the main difference now is that I do a lot more. My secondary characters are all kind of realistic now, and I find that works pretty well. In the early Megaton Man, I had, like, everything was being exaggerated, and I'm still learning my new camera here. I'm very fussy, but you can see these characters are much more realistically proportioned. These are some of the secondary characters, and I find that Megaton Man, even though he's a very exaggerated character, he works just as well around straight superheroes, and the humor still comes across somehow. I guess that was my point. I'm wandering off the subject, but getting back to your question. So I'm still doing Megaton Man, but I've worked out much more elaborate storylines, and I've thought long and hard about how this universe works together, and so it's kind of it started out as a parody, but now it's just my idea of a superhero universe now.
And do you find now that you worked out the like humorous writing muscle that you want to use that more often than go back to like a serious or whatever type of story? Because the jokes per minute in the X amount here is like, it's constant. It's just it fires a mile a minute. So is that like usually how your mind works? And like in conversation, are you like that type of guy, or is it kind of like, I don't know? Or,
well, I'll tell you, the stuff that I just showed you,
yeah,
is not as off the wall slapstick. Where's X amount of comics? X amount of comics was much more improvisational. I did script the whole thing. I mean, I scripted 10 pages at a time, but a lot of the wordplay, a lot of the inside jokes kind of came to me as I was drawing it. The main difference is this all takes place in a kind of allegorical universe. So time and space don't really exist, and you can see things like Cyclopster becomes a giant mountain that they're climbing, and we have Paul Nabisco, Paul Nabisco is a character from Bizarre Heroes, and I have him being crucified with his creation, Gower Goose. Bizarre Heroes in the 1990s was my expansion of the Megaton Man universe. It was kind of quasi semi-serious. A lot of the characters were more dramatic superheroes that I had created in junior high school. But Paul Nabisco in particular was kind of always a parody of Alan Moore, mixed in with a little bit of Steve Gerber and Howard the Duck. But yeah, there's all kind of visual references to things. This is the Michelangelo La Pieta. Of course, I make fun of Image guys, the Image founders. But yeah, it was very stream of conscious. I just kept following one idea after the other, and somehow, when I did the first, I'll show you something. Show you something else, which is when this started. Here's the cover, but the first thing I posted originally was this cover. This is the penciled version that I posted on Facebook, and some of these characters they're not even detailed at all. There's the Black Bug has only got 2 arms, Limberlass has only 2 legs, and some of these characters I don't even know what they are. I just posted. Some of them were in focus, but most of them were just kind of amorphous little stand-in characters. And between that and inking it, which was this version of it, you can see I've already developed the characters, and I've got. Sorry, I'm touching on my focus and sure. You can see the black bug now has 4 arms, and Limberlass has 4 legs and no arms. And but when I was just laying out this image, I had no idea what these characters were. They were loosely referring to the Image Comics 1963 series, but they were I didn't know what they were going to be called. I didn't know their names. Cyclopster, he kind of fell into place. He's kind of an N-Man character, and he's a lobster, and he's a cyclops. And so I thought it's Cyclopster time. All this kind of stuff was just one thing rolling off the other, and I just kind of went with it. Another thing I'm particularly proud of is the psychic squid with a P. I don't know where this came from. I just kind of went with it, and I didn't have a real plan. I scripted maybe 4, 5, 6 pages at a time. Toward the once I got to around page 20, it started to come together, and I started including more of my own characters. I included the Pictopia characters. Here's Del Close. My little
nice.
Although I don't refer to him by his real name, I just include him. I don't know if there's going to be copyright problems or anything. But and then of course I throw in my own characters. So I've got Yarn Man and everybody else. But I just this was an exceptional example of kind of a throwback to what I was doing in the old original Megaton Man. But as these things, as you develop these ideas, then they become a little more rationalized, and you start to work out continuities and so forth. But the X amount of comics all takes place in this make-believe world, this kind of interdimensional world. And at the end of it, they all plop back into the Megaton Man universe. And so the new stuff that I'm doing is all taking place in a little more rational unfolding. And there's a little more soap opera, and there's a little more real-time pacing and real world consequences to the actions that are going on. That makes any sense.
Oh, definitely. I'll do one little question here, and then we'll go over to Rick. I noticed as I was also perusing your YouTube, and I'm never surprised when I find this out. It kind of always goes in there that you're also a musician too. I see that you play the clarinet. Tell me about where music comes into your creative life, and also what type of music do you listen to while you're creating?
Wow. I played clarinet from 5th grade through high school. Then I played saxophone. And then I got into, during the pandemic, just before the pandemic, I got a clarinet, which I hadn't owned a clarinet for a while. I had a saxophone, but you can't really practice saxophone if you live in an apartment. And then once the pandemic started, I actually thought, watching all these videos on chordal instruments, and I was always like, I'd taken some music theory in high school, and I sang in choir and stuff like that. But I'd never played a chordal instrument, which is like a keyboard or a guitar. I'm watching all these music theory videos like Rick Beato and Adam Neely and various other people online, and I thought, gee, I wonder what a guitar costs. So I go out and I get a guitar, and I'm still learning the fretboard, but I'm starting to do some chords. I'm not using all 6 strings. I'm just using the top 4 strings. It's a little easier, but it's nice. It's kind of mathematical. It's meditative. It's takes my mind off of other things, and My favorite thing to do is watch Law and Order on Thursday night for 3 hours with the sound off and just play. Try to play Bach. Try to play Bach.
You don't learn the Law and Order theme song and
I can do that too. That's
Yeah.
a pretty neat little. It's like in fourths or something. But,
and then you take it into the jazz realm and improvise on the theme for hours.
Well, I'm not gonna be recording Blue Note. But Joe Ely is a musician, and I did get a vihuela, which is like it's unfair to describe it as like a kind of a ukulele, but it's a smaller kind of guitar. It's a stringed instrument. It's a wonderful sound. I got it from one of his friends down there in South Texas. Nice cedar wood smell. But I have no Spanish inflection in my rhythm or anything like that. But I'm just enjoying all these different instruments, and I just goof around. It's just it's nice.
It's a nice
thing about guitar, though. Guitar will actually play a tune. A clarinet and saxophone, you have to kind of get what you're stuck with whatever the intonation is of that instrument. There's not a lot you can do. There's certain notes on a saxophone or clarinet that they're just awful.
I heard you play Yes's long distance runaround. I mean, that's not a clear.
Yeah, I mean, I can, if I practice something 100 times, I can do a short practice. There's some nice technical things, but I do have the calluses on my fingers. I was playing a lot this last weekend. I was playing a lot of
nice,
just single note stuff. I haven't gotten into too many chords or anything like that.
It's good to have another like creative outlet that's not the one that is like also paying the bills. I mean, I know it doesn't always get old, but it's nice to have a little something else to dive into and kind of change your creative gear. All right, cool. Let's head over to Rick Lopez and see what he's got to ask. He's always over there drawing. He's always over there doing it. Let's see what you got, Rick.
Thanks again, Don, for coming on. Appreciate your time. I do have a bunch of questions. So, first of all, I mean, like, I want to know, like, as much as you're willing to tell us, but like, obviously, when you came into contact with comics, and then when it became, I need to make comics, and then I'm also curious about your influences, but maybe more so influences that either don't get talked about as much or aren't as known as much, maybe.
Well,
I know that's a lot of stuff, Don. I'm sorry.
I've been drawing since I was 5.
Okay, I figured.
And I just never stopped. Something, I don't think I was like Rembrandt or anything. I just got a certain satisfaction from it. Whereas other kids, I can remember kids in kindergarten, they would just get real frustrated. And I don't think that, like I said, I don't think I was head and shoulders above anybody else or anything. I enjoyed it. I just felt like I could move the lines and make them do what I wanted to do. These other kids they'd get real frustrated. They couldn't draw a nose or something, and they'd give it up and go play with blocks or something, or play kickball or something. So I got a satisfaction from drawing, and I stuck with it. And I was 10 years old. Comics were kicking around the neighborhood and stuff, and Adam West Batman was on TV when I was about 7. Sunday papers, coloring books. But it wasn't until I was 10, in 3rd grade, and I got a short little stack of comic books from grade school that one of the teachers had brought in some comics. And, like Gold Key comics and Archie comics and a couple, there was a Jack Kirby, Jimmy Olsen, Superman in Supertown. It was probably the most exciting comic book. So that summer after the school year, I went out and I started buying comics, and I gravitated toward Marvel. So it was summer of 1972, and I just gravitated toward these weird Marvel comics. I'd seen a few before. I had somehow I had a coverless copy of Not Brand X number 12, which was just a weird comic book. I didn't know it. You know, it was supposed to be funny, but I didn't know anything about what the characters were supposed to be.
Right.
And then I just, as soon as I realized that there were credits, and there were grown-ups that, took credit for writing and drawing those things, and I thought, well, I guess that's what I'll do when I grow up. So I'll do this. And that became my goal. And it's
How do you eventually break in?
Well, so from the age of 10 till about the age of 22, 23, I just practiced, and I studied anatomy. I got a chance to meet Keith Pollard. Who I grew up in Detroit, and my mom worked at Montgomery Ward's, which is a department store. And she knew somebody in the commercial art department, and this guy was he was a cartoonist. He's an African-American cartoonist for the Michigan Chronicle, which was an African-American newspaper, James Malone. And he knew Keith Pollard, who was biracial. He lived near Detroit, Arville Jones. So in high school, I got to meet some of these guys, and Keith Pollard at the time, he was living in Southgate, Michigan. He was living south of Detroit, but he was freelancing from home, and he was penciling Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, among other things. So that was quite an education. I got to meet him and visit his studio, and he showed me, and I wanted to be a penciler, so he encouraged me to start penciling pages, close-ups and long shots in a variety of angles and so forth. And just about that time, this book came out. This book came out just about that time, which was like from heaven, John Buscema, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And I actually have, if you look at my wall, one of these pages, it goes back here.
You dropped me.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay. Smooth technical. To plug my camera back.
Here on the wall, if you can see that Fantastic Four page.
Yeah.
It's all glary, but anyway, it has some of those headshots on that page are in the quite by accident. How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. Not that makes it a valuable page otherwise. Anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying I mostly taught myself all through video. From How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, I discovered Bernard Hogarth, and I tried art school, but that wasn't formative at all, because art school was either fine art, gallery art, or advertising, and that just wasn't my bag. And I wanted to learn how to draw anatomy and learn ink, and mostly I just taught myself, and I just learned the tools, and I got how-to books out of the library. And another book, I don't know if I have it yet. you. I can't spot it. There was another book called, oh, here it is. Hold on. There was this book, which is a book published in the United Kingdom, which I got remaindered. It's called The Masters of Comic Book Art. This wasn't the copy that I bought at the time by P.R. Garriott, and it introduced me to, sorry I'm coughing so much, Richard Corbin, Crumb, Eisner, Wally Wood, Harvey Kurtzman. And just as I was, Mobius, among others, just as I was outgrowing superheroes, Marvel Comics, I found this book. And that extended my interest into Heavy Metal magazine that was coming out at the time, and classic reprints and so forth. So that was it. And then when I lost this bet to Mike Kazawa, who came up with Megaton Man, that's what started me on my first issue of an actual comic book. And that's it. Simple as that. 13 years later.
Gotcha. Okay, I do have more questions, but I'll let other people, because I know other people are raising their hands. But thank you for those first few so far, Don.
Thanks, Rick. Who's next?
I thought we were going to have our friend Grom, but I feel like he disappeared.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
this
did
is
raise
still
his
there.
hand. Oh.
Oh, we got you, bud. All right, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I can. And I wanted to say that in 1996, you taught the art workshop at the Art Institute in Pittsburgh. It was 6 weekends long. There were 4 people in that class. There were 4 or 5 of us. And I think
You're kind of Ron,
Yeah, we
you're
can't
kinda
hear you at
breaking
all,
up.
Grom. You sound like a
You're
robot.
breaking up, David.
Could you
Give me a second.
type could you type a text message that I could read?
Sounds like he's going inside here.
We're trying to get in another room. Is that better?
Much better, Grom. Much better.
Yeah,
now.
Okay.
much better.
Okay. I just wanted to say, man, back in, I want to say it was 1996 at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, you did a 6-weekend comic book workshop. I want to say there were 5 of us in the class. And at that point, that was the most training or education that I had gotten from any comic book, to know about making comics. And you introduced me to the non-photo blue pencil. And I know this sounds silly, but 25 years later, I'm still making comics. And I just wanted to say thank you for doing that.
What's your full name?
David Grum.
Okay. Sounds vaguely familiar. I was doing workshops after that was right after the Image Comics thing, and so I started doing workshops at community college around town, and I went to the I pitched to the Art Institute, which is did you actually go there as a student?
No, I actually lived in central Pennsylvania at the time, and I rode a bus down every weekend to go to those classes.
Just as well, because they were not the greatest educational facility.
Yeah.
Institution. But this is what Jim Valentino uses now. He turned me on to these. This is a light blue color race, which is not the non-photo blue. But I understand these are hard to come by now.
They are.
They're hard to. They're like, I have a one box left. I think I have 10 of these left, but it works a little better than the non-photo blue is a little bit waxier, and Jim Valentino is the one that told me use the light blue. It's a little darker. You have to draw a little lighter with it, but it inks better over inking over is better. But now you're going to go out and buy up all the last light blue pencils out there. Color Race is the brand.
That's what I'm actually going to write that down real quick.
But that's what I use. You can see a little bit traces of blue. Maybe you can see traces of blue on here. But I still use that. Let's switch camera, see if I can. That's fine. Switch to oh, here it is. But thank you, Mr. Grom. I appreciate you remembering that. That's very nice of you.
Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate it. 100%.
Yeah, you know, there wasn't that kind of a cartoon workshop for when I was breaking, you know, and I was looking for that kind of information. And even gosh, now I can't find my control panel. You know, I just had to scrounge and find things.
Even at that time, it was really like that, because like you were saying, there was the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, and then really there was like they did have some of those like those graphic shot like How to Draw Manga books. It was like basically like it's like the only series of manga books that's actually from Japan that got translated into English. But yeah, outside of that, there really wasn't anything at the time.
Yeah, it was very scarce information. This is a panel I started drawing with light blue. Focus on this if I can. I've got three adjustments on this camera and I haven't learned them yet. So this is a panel I'm drawing, and I'm using light blue to start with. As you can see, I'm sketching it out. Here I've used light blue. Here I've used graphite over the light blue, but I still do that, and of course I'm going to ink this later. But yeah, I still definitely work that way. Here's some, you can see traces of light blue under drawing, and then I've used graphite here.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, just to have somebody demonstrate that would have been really nice. I had to kind of stumble upon it myself. It was the nice thing about meeting Keith Pollard was that he could show me his pencils and he could show me different inkers, and you get some professional sense that way. But it's more of a almost a kind of apprenticeship situation. And of course, I was still learning after I broke into the business and I did my first issues of Megaton Man. I was still meeting people, and you get tips and tricks from your fellow professionals. And like I said, Jim Valentino showed me it was like 10 years into my career before he mentioned that he used light blue color rays.
Sorry, I'm trying to.
In fact, we were working on the Normal Man Megaton Man, and that's what he was using, and so that's how I got onto those. So, but today there's so many more resources, and I just uploaded a few videos a couple of days ago, just to show my little techniques and stuff.
Oh, right on, right on.
Yeah, you can look on. You can follow me on Facebook or look on my YouTube channel. And I try not to cosplay the videos, but sometimes. Anyway, but I've been showing some of my inking techniques and stuff on videos and that thing. Sorry, I'm rambling on here.
Oh yeah.
Oh, good. Hey, thanks, Grom, for your question, man.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's go over to Tony Farrow. He just put his hand up here. Another amazing cartoonist. What up, Tony? Let's ask to unmute you here. And we should be good.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Dude.
All right. I have two questions, if that's okay. One is a little bit weird, and the other one is very kind of pedestrian. But one thing that I've always, this may be just some strange association that I have in my mind, but I can't find. Okay, I don't know what the hell I'm looking at. Whatever. But
you take your hand down.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'll get you, dude.
Okay. There we go.
That doesn't matter. Ask your question. That's fine.
I'm sorry. I was confused because I couldn't see Don, but.
I spotlighted both of you. We got both of you in the two-shot here.
All right, I'm flying blind. But here's the first question, which is just a little bit out of left field, and I don't know if there's any association here or not. But I've always, for some reason, in my mind, made an association between you and Mark Hansen. Is there any like association there, or I just for some reason you guys are always, I think your styles are very similar.
What does he do again? Does he do
Ralph Snart? Yeah.
Yeah. He sends me his PDFs.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. Well, he kind of reminds me of Hunt Emerson. Have you ever heard of Hunt Emerson?
Yes.
British artist. I think Mark started a little bit after me. He's you know, if I were doing a Megaton Man backup feature, I would hire this guy to do it. But he's got that kind of overly muscled, overly exaggerated kind of thing. I can see what you're saying. I think we came at it independently, but because we were both kind of fully formed as we.
Right. I just was. Yeah, I didn't know if there were like if you guys knew each other, if there was any sort of thing, or if it was just a kind of a coincidence. You both probably had similar influences or something, but. There, for some reason, there's always been an association in my mind with the two of you, because both of you guys are kind of role models in a way in terms of my inking style. Like I really love that really heavy black line and.
We use a brush.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I use almost exclusively brush. I very rarely use pens at all, and that brings me to my other question. As I was going to ask you what you ink with.
Well, again, I referred you just to videos I posted this week. I use a Micron PN nowadays.
Okay.
The PN is the plastic nib. I use Micron. I use like pigment markers to do lettering now. I used to use rapidographs to do the lettering. Kohler rapidographs. Try walking in an art supply store and asking for rapidographs. They will look at you like you're from outer space. But that's what I started with. I used to use speedball pens to do the lettering, ancient of days. But now I use where's my pen? Here I use but I demonstrate on my latest video. I demonstrate Crow Quill. It was a Hut 102, which is covered with masking tape or dust here. And I use a sable brush. Raphael's 8. What is this, an 8?
8404?
8403 or something. Anyway.
Yeah, the 8404 is what I use. That's, yeah. And what size do you use? Is that size? Just curious.
This is a 2, but I used to use 3s.
Yeah, 3s are what I use.
I bought a bunch of these the 2s. I wasn't sure I could. I hadn't used brush for quite a number of years. I wasn't sure.
That surprises me. Your stuff really, it looks like it's done with brush. It's just interesting.
Well, the Crow Quill, you can make these things look. You can make them blend. But so like. This is a combination of brush, like Black Bug is brush, but things like the hands and the details are like the PN, Micron PN. Probably ink that hand, with the PN. But yeah. Watch for my YouTube videos because I demonstrate all these tools and
yeah, I will definitely do that.
I just put his channel in the chat there.
What's that?
I just put your channel in the chat, both on Facebook and here though.
because if you're working in a tight space, the pans work really well. The only problem is they're disposable and you can't refill them very easily. They're not worth refilling.
That is, I've never heard of that particular micron. Is that what type of? You said PN?
Well, it's instead of a cylindrical nib, it's more of it's a plastic nib.
Huh, interesting.
Those are awesome. I also use those for some letters.
And is that good? The ink is good archival ink?
So far.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't knock over my camera setup again. So here's I did this pen point may be a little dried out. This is not the ideal circumstance for drawing, but I mean the regular pigment markers have this kind of cylinder tip, which just draws a real straight mechanical line. The pans are a little more flexible, especially if you get a fresh one. I'm not really warmed up right now. It's
right.
Perfect, but but here's my bottle of ink, and let me get my real artwork out of the way so I don't mess it up. The crow quill, I can get it going. This paper's a little bit bleedy, as you can see.
Yeah, I can never get the crow quill nibs to flow quite that smoothly.
There's a kind of breaking in of a pen point.
Right.
Like I said, I mostly use the Raphael or the sable brush. It all depends. I usually don't.
Yeah.
This paper is more like blotter paper. This is really terrible Bristol board, but that's a whole different subject, is the quality of art supplies. But I go through a whole demo. You want to look at those YouTube videos. And I like the ink on Strathmore Drawing 400.
Yeah.
But it's everything these days is owned by Chart Pack, and the quality is up and down. So it's kind of catch kind of. There's a lot of white out because so I use so I demonstrate all that stuff. Mood proof white, but yeah, it's just old school black and white outlines.
Yep.
Try to make them as artful as you can. But yeah, I like a good brush, but boy, they used to make really great brushes half a century ago. And I was literally told that the quality of the Russian sable has a lot to do with the harsh winters, and of course with global warming, you don't have quite the harsh winters anymore. So the quality, among other things, and
excuse me,
aside from just assembling the brush hairs, that's another lost art form. But Winsor Newton used to be the brand that everybody used. And
yeah, I used to swear by Winsor Newton, and
Strathmore Kolinsky was a brand that was really good, and now Raphael seem to be the ones that are worth.
Yeah, Winsor Newton seems to have taken a massive drop in quality. I used to use them a lot, but they haven't been treating me too good lately.
Like being a clarinet player, these clarinet and saxophone players, all they talk about is their reeds and the quality of reeds and the, what hardness of reeds and blah blah. And then you get guitar players talking about their strings and bronze strings and nylon strings and catgut strings and God knows what else, different kinds of woods and all that stuff. It's just an obsession. I try to use whatever works, and I try not to fight it.
Rough in comics because our reeds can't hold a solid form and they just stretch all the time.
What's that?
I said it's tough because in comics our reeds just stretch all over the place and they can't,
Yeah,
It's a pun, and that's not a good one, obviously.
I actually tried.
All right, we can go over to Joe if you want to. You got a question there for us? And thanks so much, Tony.
Yep, thank you.
Actually, I've got 3 questions.
Nice.
if it'll take them.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. So my friends in the circles in which I run seem to believe that I go and hang over at your house and eat scrapple and all this other stuff with you, when in fact you're on the other side of the country. But they've asked me to ask you some questions.
Who was that person that was over here the other day? That was a total stranger.
Oh, obviously.
We've never actually met. We've only mailed to each other. I have all your comics, by the way. Hold on, I have the complete set of not just the one that I did, and they all have. Where do you get these stickers, Joe? That's
The dollar. The dollar.
You have, and Joe sends me artwork. I got all this stuff. I got the whole set. Waiting for the trade paperback. Joe is a consummate perfectionist. He keeps remastering his stories about 5 times before they get pressed.
But when I learn a new trick, I just gotta.
Never actually met. We've only talked on the phone. You've influenced my life. I would oil my hair if I had any. I'd start wearing ties if I had any place to go. But
one of these days, I'll have to tell them the story about how I initially encountered your works.
Well, I'll tell you something. Joe asked me to draw this cover, and I colored it as well, and I'm doing 3 covers for him. But I'm not doing that anymore. I just turned down somebody today. I've been turning down these. I've had really bad experience just with collaborators and with people wanting covers and stories, and they want artwork and publishing. I will do commissions for collectors, but this is the last. This is going to be one of the last few things you'll see where I'm doing something for somebody else because.
Well, that takes care of one question.
Joe has it together, but some of these people out there, I have to do background checks on their finances and their emotional health and their mental health, and it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. I've had some really bad experiences this year. Anyway, go on, Joe. What's your other question?
All right. So these guys are talking to me, and I've mentioned this like 5 or 6 times all over the internet about the Don Simpson Renaissance. Now, you've always been around here, but it seems like all of a sudden you have this like resurgence. And so the question that they're asking is, sometime in the late 2020s, early 2030s, could we expect a new Don Simpson property, along with the Megaton Man and your other stuff? Should we, dare we hope that there could be some future Simpsonite character that or series that will be something that we have never seen before, that will explode out as something new? If you could illuminate us on that. And then the second one that they'd like me to ask is, will you be making weekly videos? And if so, if you could also talk about your process of not only the artwork, but also the storytelling and world building. That's
I got my camera set up. This was actually a display piece for doing conventions. This is like a backdrop display thing, and I'm using it for my overhead camera. So I'm all set up now. I'm like a little TV studio. I keep knocking things over, but yeah, I think I'm gonna post more videos as we go. Let me switch cameras again. People are amazed that I can switch cameras. I'm amazed I can switch cameras.
Yeah, you're doing better than NBC is. Well, until now.
Well, like I said, autofocus is very disturbing when you're trying to draw to do a demo. There's three adjustments on this lens. What you're looking at is this is the 2005 Finnish edition. This is the translation of Wendy Whitehead. Speaking of IPs, and get it in focus. And in Finland, she's known as Paula Patanki, which is some kind of derogatory reference to French croissants or something. And of course, this is Forbidden Frankenstein. This is under my pseudonym Anton Drake. I haven't done those in 30 years, but those are my IP, I guess you could say. As for new stuff, as I said, I'm mostly doing Megaton Man. I don't really have a lot of characters that are going to be showing up in these storylines, but most of my stuff is contained in this, what I might call the Megaton Man universe, the Bizarre Heroes universe. So I guess I could show you this. And this is
I think they imagine that someday you're going to get hit on the head like Doc Brown and suddenly manifest this new character or spinoff. There we go.
Billy Zillion, and she's basically she's the alter ego of Helldiver, who was a character in the X amount of comics. This is Tightrope Roy, who was a character in Megaton Man, but most everything now fits into my Megaton Man universe, or at least into Border Worlds or something. And even Border Worlds kind of fits into the Megaton Man universe.
Well, I can
so
tell
I
you
don't
that
expect to do anything completely brand new. Mostly because I have too many old ideas that I haven't gotten to yet.
I guess, is it in the realm of possibility though? Maybe perhaps sometime, people hope beyond hope.
What would you suggest, Joe? Do I need like a
Vihuela Man?
need like a comic?
I don't know, maybe like a variety show, 70s era variety show with your characters, or some sort of a thing like that. But like I said, people seem to be hungry for your art and your lore and whatnot. I just wondering, like I said, in case you needed to know, there are people talking about that.
Okay, well, thank you. So people think you actually dropped by the house. How many? We're like 750 miles apart.
That would be Tennessee. I haven't actually, how far? There's no telling. You're in 3 regions away, aren't you?
Yeah, we're time zone away. So, but if you're never near Pittsburgh, we'll just drop by.
One day the wife will turn me loose, or I'll turn her loose. We have a very progressive marriage. It's getting progressively worse, but we'll see. I really would like to meet you someday and just shoot the breeze in person. That is, like I said, one day the story will have to be told of how I encountered the Don Simpson alter ego that nearly ruined my college career. But that's beyond the scope of this channel.
I'm looking from my house to Kingsville, Texas, right? I was
Oh, but I live in Fremont, Texas, so add another 30.
okay, so it's 24 hours drive.
What a way to waste a day.
1,500. It's 1,566 miles, so it's 1,600 miles.
Wow.
So,
well, I should start walking now.
all right, thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Glad you could make it tonight.
Great to talk to you.
Thanks so much, Joe. All right, let's head over to Kev Tough Stuff Delgado himself. What up, Kev? How's it going, man? I will ask to unmute you.
I'm good.
Ready?
Good?
Yep, you good?
Yeah. Hey, how's everything going? Thanks for being here and all that stuff. I was just wondering, like, what drives you to, like, keep making the same, like, character, like Megaton Man, like, keep it fresh and what you think is going to engage in readers and, you know, just keeping that momentum going when you're talking about doing a character for like 20, 30 years, you know?
Well, it's highly speculative. I've probably neglected Megaton Man most of that 30 years.
Right.
So it's very sporadic. I keep coming back to it variously because I'm encouraged by certain people every once in a while to do it. Steve Bissett was really instrumental in encouraging X amount of comics. He was like, as soon as I posted that one first image, he was like, "This is fantastic. You gotta do this." And then it kind of snowballed from there. But it's an outlet. I mean, unlike some people, I still own this stuff, so I don't have to listen to anybody. I can go back to it. There's some people from the 80s and 90s that sold their characters, like Bill Willingham. He can't go back and do Elementals or something like that. It's really kind of sad. At least I can go back and do my own characters, and I don't have to listen to anybody or have any regrets in that and like that. I did go to college for 10 years. College. So there's like diplomas on the wall. That and a few bucks will buy me a cup of coffee at Starbucks. But so that kept me fresh. I used a different part of my brain for a decade. And then I came back to this and it was still there. And luckily there's still people that want my stuff and want shows, and Fantagraphics of all people wanted to publish this thing. I couldn't believe it. Not that there's any money in it, I think in advance or anything, but it's real, and you know, but it doesn't take much. I mean, I'm not in it for like, I'm not, you know, as long as it pays for itself. I'm not really doing I'm not doing this for competing with you know, the big names or anything. I'm just doing it because I've got nothing better to do. So,
you see, like, I see you on the convention circuit like all the time. So you know, you're out there working. Like, where is it? I was at Terrificon and I got a commission to draw Warlock. And the same guy commissioned you to draw Warlock, but you made Warcock.
what did I do?
You drew Warlock from New Mutants, but like made out of dick.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was.
So I had the same guy commissioned me. So when I saw that shit, I started cracking up. I was like, "Damn, that just crushed what I was trying to achieve."
Well, that's a character you can really improvise because go nuts. You know, one of the exciting things about the 80s was Sienkiewicz on the New Mutants. And I never read it. I just looked at the artwork.
Right.
It was just amazing. But shows are, shows are a great opportunity. They're taxing. I have to draw. I do my own loading and unloading and lugging stuff, and I threw my back out. I almost completely threw my back out at that show. I somehow got through it. I'm no youngster anymore, but you know, they're kind enough to give me a table and kind enough to give me a hotel room, and that makes it feasible.
Oh yeah.
I did okay. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. It's more inertia at this point.
Right.
I got nothing better to do. I have been writing. I write, and I'm writing stories, and I've written prose stories about some of these characters. And I still hope to do more of that. I do think of my characters now more as IP. I hate the word IP, but that's I don't think of them as exclusively comic book characters. I think of them as potentially other formats. But cartooning is what I have at my fingertips. I have a closet full of art supplies, and I have paper. And I can still hold a pencil, and there are collectors that want my artwork, and they keep throwing money at me. So we'll see how far it goes. You never know when it's going to end.
Right.
It's a precarious existence if you're trying to bank on it or anything. But I can't complain. I just as long as there's a blank sheet of paper, I got nothing better to do. Just scribble on it.
That's literally what I'm doing. So yeah, I get that. Cool. Well, thank you, man.
Thank you, Kevin. How'd you do it, Terrific? Oh,
yeah. I did more than break even, but I gotta pay for a hotel and everything too.
You live in Connecticut? You live up there?
No, I'm from Buffalo.
Okay.
And I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh that everyone loves to rip on. So thanks.
Well, I hope it didn't damage you too much. All right, thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
Thanks so much, Kevin. All right, so Manny and I both have specific books to ask you about. For me, it's one that I had, another one of these ones that was in my collection, if you will, and I didn't put it all together that it was you. And this is Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles work that you did. How'd you get hooked up with those guys? I feel like these guys are like fans of indie books, so they must have been fans of Megaton Man. How did you get hooked up with them and then work on such a off-the-wall Turtles Adventures book with them?
I met Kevin and Peter when they were still doing black and whites. I think they were like up to issue 5 or something.
Nice. I
remember when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was the funniest phrase I ever heard in my life, and I laughed for 20 minutes. Even though the book itself was not particularly a humor book. Yeah, I met those guys before they were even reprinted by First Comics and before the TV shows and the toys and everything else. Nice. And Kevin used to buy Megaton Man, and when I met him, he was literally wearing a Megaton Man button. We had a set of buttons, and he was wearing one of them. So he was always a fan. He bought sketches from me. I could charge him outrageous prices. I did a Megaton Turtle one year, and I lost the photograph, but he literally made a Megaton Man Halloween costume, and he sent me a photo. Wow. And there's Kevin with a mustache. And this homemade Megaton Man costume. This is like 1985, 1986.
Wow.
And those guys just took off and had a very different they had a very different mindset than I have. they were open to all kinds of people contributing and ideas contributing to their concept and so forth, and they seemed delighted by anything that other people contributed. I don't think I could have been that relaxed about it, just
Right.
the TV people wanted pizza and they wanted cowabunga and all that stuff, and Kevin and Peter were like all for it. But Kevin hired me to do a couple of things for Mirage, and I didn't understand the turtles, frankly. So I did this thing called the alternate turtles. So I did my own. It's kind of like X amount of comics. I did my own. Like these were the second run turtles.
Yeah.
So there's a couple features you can find in some of the paperback stuff.
I think it was like
And
Turtle
then-
Soup, maybe.
And then the Archie, those guys hired me to do a couple things, and I inked a couple things and penciled a couple things. And I have to tell you, at the time I was doing it, I was not like the top turtle artist. I was not anybody's favorite artist. I was just doing it. It was like a lot like Wasteland. I was just doing it because it was paying the bills.
Right.
And my turtles look kind of rubbery and like they didn't. I never got it. I never got the turtles, but a lot of people.
It was like
if that was your first
generation.
comic book. What's that?
It was just like the thing for a whole generation. You must have had to come to it from this like youth perspective at the time to.
Well, yeah, if it was your first comic book, then you have a soft spot for it, and so I've run into those people, and they're like, "Wow, you're Don Simpson. That was the first comic book I ever read was like Archie Turtles number whatever," and to me it was just a paycheck, but they really meant a lot to them, and so it's very nice.
It's the glory of comics, like.
And I never felt like I was like the ultimate art, turtle artist or anything like that, or that I had anything really to say about the concept.
Everybody finds something different to take out and to love and to hold, and that's what makes it so cool. Is that something that you did for a paycheck, or me as a Turtles fan? Maybe it's not my favorite book, but someone it is their favorite book, and they come to you and they're like, "You're Don Simpson from Ninja Turtles, right?" And you're like,
well, in my mind, there's there's the stuff that I did. There's Border Worlds, and there's Megaton Man, and there's my stuff that I wrote and drew. And but if you go to shows and you got people bringing up, I had some fan, they like anything that with my name on it, they've got it, and they bring it up to me and they want an autograph. And that's really touching. I could sit there and I could say, well, this is not really very good. And, you hear stories about like Harlan Ellison used to tear up stories that he didn't like or whatever like that. But, my name's on it, and fans collect it, and it means something to them. And so I'm not going to diss it, but, by the same token, I would never claim that I was like the ultimate interpreter of Eastman and Laird. Okay,
Yeah.
But they were very nice to me. They were always very kind. And Kevin was very supportive.
Yeah, they just seem to be just true fans of comics, which I dig. So can't fault them for that. All righty, thanks, Eli. Great question, bud. Just kidding.
Thanks, Eli.
All right, let's go back over to Manny, who's got another question here.
All right, so like I was thinking of when maybe my first exposure to your work was, because it's hard to remember that, but I think it might have been the Savage Dragon versus Megaton Man one shot, and I've read it many times throughout the years, and I've always wondered like how you guys handled the art, because there are some parts where you're both drawing different pages, but then there are pages where both of you are drawing. So like what was the process like with Eric, and like what was it like creating this book?
So those were that was just all FedEx back and forth, and
Yeah, I would imagine.
you might be able to tell some pages are laid out by him, so he would
That was
kind of
my next
roughly
question.
pencil. Can you pick a page so you looks like
Yeah,
take
like
a
a page
guess.
with both. Which ones he did? Like he laid
Yeah.
out?
Because he has a different sensibility in layout, and he would
I would guess maybe this one.
yeah, that looks like his. But so some of them I started half of them, and then he started half, and then there's like pages that are just a solo,
Yeah.
and then we just traded them back and forth, and you can kind of tell. I kind of he's got more of a triangular style,
Mm-hmm.
more of a triangular layout sense. And he was also more conscious of using, I guess, Ken Bruzenak lettering, and so there's like these big sound effects and stuff. So those are his pages.
Okay.
But basically, I did 12 and a half pages, and I started them in Pittsburgh, and he started 12 and a half pages in Oakland, California, and we traded them. But this was before the internet. This was before digital. We just FedExed them back and forth. I think they only just went once or twice. I did my own lettering. We kind of dummy in the other part, and it was all jam. Now the Normal Man Megaton Man special, if you have that was a couple years later. That was all Valentino, and he literally took the like pieces like the cover of the Normal Man Megaton Man. He got Jeff Smith to draw, and Scott McCloud, and
Nice.
Neil the Horse, Arn Saba, and all these different people. He got everybody to draw their own character at a convention, so they're literally drawing on the same piece of bristleboard.
Nice.
That's all Valentino. I never would have bothered. I couldn't. I would have just faked it, or I would have, something. But he wanted to get the authentic people. So he had me and Bob Burden and Larry Martyr. We all drew our own characters. We actually got together. Speaking of Texas, I don't know if Joe is still on the line, but we went down we're flying around Texas to a bunch of Dallas Fantasy Fair mini cons, and me and Valentino and Larry Martyr and Bob Burden were talking about this project, and then Valentino got a hotel room in New York City. So I go to New York. It's January. This is right when the earthquake in California, the early '95. There was that earthquake in Los Angeles. But it's like 5 degrees in New York, and we're in this little hotel room. There's photos of this online. And he was, he would sit he was sitting on the floor, drawing on the coffee table, and we just went back and forth and just do the whole book that way. But that was unusual. The Dragon was all FedEx, back and forth, and we just kind of made allowances for each other. We just kind of finished whoever did the backgrounds, somebody would start it. I'd kind of pencil his character real loosely, and then he would finish it, and vice versa. And I guess Ken Bruzenak did the lettering. He's for his characters. But yeah, that's all jammed. There was one page, a couple pages that Eric cut up and rearranged a little bit, but that was toward the end. But it was all jammed on the same piece of bristleboard.
Yeah, man, I can't imagine that. Was it nerve-wracking having to send pages back and forth through FedEx?
Or? No. Nerve-wracking? No, it was. I actually I did a few pages to start with, and he didn't like them because I was trying to do a little more simplified style. He said, "No, you got to draw it like your '80s, real detailed." So I had to scrap a bunch of stuff, and those are online too. He didn't like my first take at it, so we had to do it again. But it was no problem. I mean, for 12 and a half pages, I actually made more money than all the stuff at Kitchen Sink Press. So
wow.
there was a lot of money flowing around in those days, so that was a big shot in the arm. So I can't complain about it. We knew it was going to sell. It wasn't going to sell like Wildcats or Spawn or Youngblood, but it did well enough, and it was the biggest paycheck I ever got. So,
nice. Well, I mean, it's a book I treasure, man. I love it. So.
Well, it was widely seen, and you can find them if you find them plentiful out there. There was a lot of them out there. So, yeah, so that's my calling card. I mean, that's a lot of people's first impression. And you'll notice on the cover, I made him kind of just this insecure, neurotic thing, but I made my character like 3 times bigger than the dragon.
Yeah.
Just out of insecurity. And then Eric started making his character bigger. He started making him more forcing like Megaton Man after that. But no, that was a fun. In fact, I'm doing just heard from Eric the other day. I did a pinup. He's going to run soon. He's going to run a pinup soon.
Oh, nice. I mean, I get Dragon every month, so I'll be on the lookout. I do love the pinup you did for the Dragon in that issue.
Yeah. That's one of the few pieces of artwork I still have. So.
Oh, nice.
You want to make me an offer?
I just might.
Mortgage your house or something.
Mortgage my apartment. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Manny.
All right. Cool, Manny. Thanks, dude.
No problem.
Let's see. Are you out there, Rick? Or we'll go over to Tony. All right, Rick. We're gonna head over to Tony, and then we'll hit you up after that. What up, Rick? Or what up, Tony? How's it going, dude?
Sorry. Is Rick not around at the moment?
I don't think he is right now.
Okay.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, okay, cool.
All right. Should we hit up Tony or should we do you, Rick?
I say go, Rick.
Let's hear from Tony.
All right. Let's hear from Tony. Oh,
Tony.
All right. Rick said Tony.
All right. Well, hello, Don. I've been reading your stuff since early Megaton Man's in the original Kitchen Sink Press run. Really, really like your work. I was curious, are there any... Say again?
How old were you?
I am 51 now. I would have been 14, maybe.
Yeah.
In the like mid 80s, right? Early 80s.
Yeah. I'm 61, so.
Did you?
All right.
I was curious to hear about Kitchen Sink and working with Dennis Kitchen. Did he give you? I would imagine he gave you kind of pretty much carte blanche, like you do the book and you hand it in, and
it was really remarkable because Kitchen had come from undergrounds, and so
yes,
they had published a lot of anthologies. I think the underground ethos was like whenever something was ready, they would publish it, and they had never really done like a new series by a new untested 24-year-old like I was, 23-year-old. So it was an amazing opportunity. I think, and I've come to theorize that the reason that they did this was because they were publishing the spirit in color.
Yeah.
I don't think Kitchen ever wanted to be dealing with color. Color is an added expense, even today, but it was really expensive back then. And but Eisner had this book called The John Law Detective, and Eclipse published this thing, and they sold like 75,000 copies. And after that, it became, and Dennis had passed on it. Dennis didn't want to take the risk, but then it was this huge thing, and then of course then Dennis had to publish The Spirit in Color, and after that, then he needed a couple more titles to be able to broker with the printers, get them down to something reasonable cost-wise. And along comes Megaton Man, which was the superhero parody, and he said, "Can you do this every other month?" And I said, "Sure." And it had only taken me 13 months to do the first issue, so I had no idea what I was doing. But he was willing to take a chance, and I ended up I nearly drowned over the summer of '84, trying to come up with more stuff. But finally, in the fall, like towards September, I actually, in 6 weeks, I did the second issue. Finally,
Wow. Okay.
all kinds of fall starts, and thereafter, I did more or less bi-monthly, sometimes unevenly, but it was just an opportunity that I had, and whatever else you can say about the relationship, good or bad, at least I had this chance, and I got the chance to put my imagination down, and there was no reason in the world to expect that I knew what I was doing, because I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
And I had no real plan. But then I moved out to Wisconsin, and I lived right on the kitchen sink compound, so I had my editor there, and I had People Plasky, who was supervising the Steve Canyon reprints. Dave Schreiner was my editor. So I had some people to refer to and to commiserate with, and to give me some guidance, but they were very hands off, because they came from the underground tradition. And it might have been a little better for me in my development if I had come up through Marvel or something with some structure, but not necessarily Jim Shooter kind of draconian structure. But but I was left to fend for myself, and I guess it was an opportunity. I tried to do the best I could, but it was sometimes a little, it was, high wire without a net. And,
yes.
Making it up as I went along. So,
did Megaton Man? I'm trying to recall. I feel like it went into the 20s, like up to 25 or higher. What was the last issue of Kitchen Sink Megaton Man?
Well, we did 10 issues, and then we did 3-issue miniseries called Return of Megaton Man, and we did 4 more one-shots. I did a total of 25 comic books, but that's including Border Worlds.
Okay.
So I did 8 issues of Border Worlds. I did a Bizarre Heroes #1 at Kitchen Sink Press. I did Tyranno Man #1. I did Yarn Man #1. X Them's #1. So it was a total of 25 comic books that I did for Kitchen, but 17 of them were Megaton Man.
Was I don't know if I missed some of the earlier part of this. In terms of your early influences, when I look at your stuff, especially the Megaton Man in particular, it makes me think of who is it? Ed Roth, the Big Daddy Hot Rod cartoonist. Was he an influence at all, or is that just something I'm making up in my head?
There's a lot. Well, there was a lot of things that weren't even conscious, but I mean, I grew up with Rat Fink and the Hot Rod cart, sticker cards and stuff. That stuff was like the '60s, early '70s. That was there. I mean, I might not have like consciously studied.
Yeah, it was in the soup of the culture.
But in second grade, everybody was drawing hot rods.
Right.
And they were drawing these goofy hot rods with mag wheels. I didn't know what any of this shit was. My dad was an automobile mechanic, but I didn't know it. I wasn't into cars, but everybody was drawing hot rods, so I drew hot rods with these huge intakes on the hood and cylinders and flames shooting out the exhaust pipes and stuff. I didn't know how I knew that was supposed to work, but I did all that stuff, wheelies and everything, and because that's what all the other kids were doing. And I guess I could fake it pretty well. So, but yeah. But at the time, I wouldn't have known who that Big Daddy Roth was by name, but I knew that genre of stuff. So yeah, that was an influence, and Peanuts and things in the newspaper and coloring books and things in Mad Magazine and things that I did.
Right.
Yeah, I might not have. I never really studied Marie Severin.
Right.
But she's an influence, and
Right.
Jack Davis, Mad Magazine, all that stuff.
Well, thank you. I don't want to take up. I know you have a limited time, and Rick had questions, so thank you so much, Don. It's really good to talk with you here.
Thanks, Tony. Nice hearing from you.
Tony, I can't help but mention that Tony's also got a book with Cosmic Lion Productions. He's an amazing creator as well. Tales from the Wolf. So you should pick it up. I guess I don't have one right here, but it's a great book.
It's very like Harvey Pekar stuff, Don.
Yes.
In that world,
All right, so let's go over to Mark actually now, who's got another question.
There's about 20 people in Ohio that are trying to be the next Harvey Pekar.
Totally.
Good luck to them. Hi, Don. Thanks for doing this and finally able to talk to you. So after getting the book, reading it from cover to cover, this must have been a tremendous relief for you. Am I stating the obvious here? Did you finally get this?
X amount of comics?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
I mean, it must be
relief.
A huge... Yeah.
I'll tell you, this is the weirdest thing because this is published in China. And I was done with this in January. And it took another few weeks to write the afterword. And so files were completed in February, and I sent them off. And I've been waiting for half a year. I've never had this kind of. Now, that was one of the reasons I did. I did X amount of comics, and I had this printed. I had 100 copies printed domestically, and that took long enough. Because those people, anyway, I didn't mention that, but I never, usually I turn in a book. In the old days, I turned in a book, and then 6 weeks later, I would have a copy. So, but in this case, it was 6 months. So it was really incredible patience. I had no choice, but I was just, it never seemed to end. I'm glad you got your copy. Who'd you order from?
Oh, Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't have much in the way of comic book shops down here, unfortunately. I got to drive for quite a ways to get to one. So,
where you at?
I'm down in Southwest Florida.
Okay.
So that's what it is. Anyway, thank you, Don.
Well, thanks, Mark. Is that it? That's all you want to know?
That's all I wanted to ask.
I was afraid to put you on here. I was afraid to give you the passcode to get on here. Thought you'd be a Hellraiser or something.
No, I was, my God. I mean, I'm a year older than you, man. And I remember when the first run, my best friend and I, we took the subway home laughing at what you were doing. It was
where were you living?
Oh, Brooklyn, New York.
So you were,
yeah.
Where was the store? What store did you go to? You have to go into New York City to get comics?
Well, here's the thing. I had a friend that owned a comic book shop on 23rd Street in the Chelsea Hotel. So I would get my books from there. And when your stuff came out, it was go-to time. It was like, what's Don doing now, And that's why it always stayed with me. And that's, you know, keeping up with you and social media. It's like, well, of course I want to know what you're doing because, hey, we're growing old and we're growing old watching stuff happen in this
Is
business.
this in the basement of the
No,
hotel?
no, it was in the building. It was a separate, it was next to the Spanish seafood restaurant that was also, it was in that building. So very interesting place, I might add.
And you would read these things, you'd read these things on the subway ride home?
Sure.
Long Island Railroad, or how'd you get back to Brooklyn?
The IND train, you know, the regular subway, you know, it was just to, at that time I was living in Midwood, Brooklyn. So, you know, buy your comics, read them on the subway. What can I tell you?
It's nice to hear. Appreciate that. Yeah, you know, there were things, there are these things that have a tremendous impact. What are you reading now?
Not a lot. Seriously, it's, I have other interests right now. I mean, there's so much out there. I do have Comixology, so I try to keep up somewhat. But, you know, at my age, it's like, well, you're reading still comics. Well, why not? You know, I'm not going to give that up. Why? So when something new and cool comes around, I read it.
Well, it's nice to hear. I appreciate. Glad to meet you, Mark, and thanks for taking the time to sit through this.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Sorry, I'm not in better voice, but
not a problem.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you so much, everyone who came out tonight. We're rounding around the 7 o'clock time. That's about 2 hours of pure, diluted, and Don Simpson pure. Injected right into our eye holes, which I'm pretty excited about. It was great to chat with everyone. Great to have you here with us, Don. Great to have everyone here. Manny, Rick, anything else you guys want to say? Distilled is
I just want to give another shout out to the Relic Hunter. You know, I'm working on issue 2 now with Adam. You got Rick's story as a backup that I wrote in this issue, so you can pick it up from Cosmic Lion Press, but give it a shot, man. I think you guys will love it.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Manny.
And thank you, Don, for coming on board and answering my silly questions about 30-year-old books, you know, that were important to me.
No, I'm happy to do it. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
Are you gonna you tape these and post these, or does anybody look at them? Or
well, it went live in the Ringside Thology group, and so it will live there. But then I'll also put it up on my YouTube as well, and then you can share that wide and far. Cool. Rick, anything else you want to add?
I was curious, but like, I don't know if there's much to say, but I was just wondering, because the nature of everything, the way it all went down, I was wondering what your experience working with Alan Moore was like.
Well, you can read it. And you have your copy of the hymnal yet? Have you got this yet? I have. What were the other things? I have a.
Is there an author introduction? Is there like a text introduction to it?
I only did 3.
But it's seething throughout.
I only did 13 pages. On 63, I was just the letterer, so I was just when I inked part of it, when I inked I lettered, so I wasn't really creatively involved. I did get the scripts, you know, they were just the dialogue from Alan that I would letter onto the artwork, but I wasn't creatively involved or ownership wise involved with 63. So, but the Invictopia was a really complicated script. I'll be happy to send you a PDF if you want, and you can read his script and see what a bad job I did.
That'd be dope.
Can I upload files after this, or what? Just send me a message send me a Facebook message, and I'll send you.
Should be able to upload here to the third button too. It's like format, screenshot, then file. If you want to give it to the crew, if not,
I'll definitely reach out as well too.
Call.
Was that?
Where is it on my screen?
Below the chat, where you would enter in a chat, there's like 3 icons: format, screenshot, and then file. You have the chat open?
Invite mute me, merge to meeting windows. No, I'm not getting that screen.
Well, it wasn't meant
All
to
right,
be.
we'll
I'll just
send it
have
to
to
Rick and
message Don personally.
Yeah, and I'll send you PDF.
We have
Yeah,
Andy from
yeah.
the chat also saying that he wants you to know that Anton Dreck is one of the best pseudonyms of all time.
Okay. Always nice to hear. All right, guys.
Cool.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Thank you again,
guys
Don.
so
You,
much.
Don.
Until next time, don't just read more comics, be more comics. All righty. Until next time, y'all.